She's like, look at me. I'm the captain now.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Generating more, like a McDavid. That dude's super fast, and I was talking to one of my clients who teaches skating, like power skating, and he was saying that Connor McDavid uses both edges of his blade to generate more speed than any other player in the NHL, right? And so like stuff like that, I find that fascinating because it's like how do you program for somebody like that in order for him to get faster and more efficient on his skates?
The other part is like just the recovery, right? Because like their intervals are so short. Like their shifts are 30 seconds, like 40 seconds sort of thing. So, even their conditioning, you're working on that first set quickness, and it's almost like I'm not focused on how quick their feet are as much as how quick they can recover and get their feet moving that quick again.
Fair.
And like even back in the day when I trained a lot of hockey players, we do things like have them do like a really hard circuit and then sit down on a chair and don't move for a minute and a half.
And that's very fun. Yeah,
and that's the functional side of it, because the reality is that like normally you do some hit training, and then as soon as you're done, you're like, I'm gonna stand and walk around and catch my breath. And but there, like they run, they do something hard, and then they're sitting on the bench and waiting for their shift again. So why not?
That sparks another.
That's dumb.
How do they stay limber and not like tear muscles and get pulls and strains more often than most? Because if that was me, if I really worked hard for that intense for such a short duration, and then have to like go to complete standstill, the next shift would not bode well for me.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a higher incidence of groin strains and all those things in hockey than any other sport, and that's part of the reason, right? Like a lot of times you think it's a push off, and the way that they hit this, skating change direction, but maybe it is the fact that the muscles are almost like falling asleep while you sit on the bench waiting for your next shift, and then you jump out and go 100 miles an hour again.
So then hockey's been around long enough that people, like trainers, should know, right? Like what would be some tools that they put into practice? Do they just have they've got so much gear on, it's not like you're rolling out the whole time.
You know what, man? I'm going to go on my soapbox about the things I think are dumb about hockey right now and stuff. But hockey is like so entrenched in traditions that are nonsensical, and they keep them going. And it baffles me. Like it takes people to come and change the paradigm completely. Like Peter did with conditioning. Before, they used to go into training camp to get in shape for hockey.
Yeah.
And then Twist came along and said, well, if you get in shape for training camp, then you're going to take somebody's spot who has been waiting for training camp to get in shape. And then people started to train during the off season. That's when off-season training came in, because the mindset was, I'm just going to golf and smoke cigars all summer and then show up to training camp, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is like eating pasta before a game, and like that mentality, like a marathon runner where you're going to carb load before a game. A lot of people do that still. Or Zamboni. You can't introduce like a Roomba. Like you still need a guy to drive a truck around the ice. Like why not get, what I'm saying? Like there's so many things that are just, that's just part of the game. It's like, well, there's better ways of doing it. Why are you still stuck in like 1963?
Well, now hold on. So I think I agree with you to an extent, but then what's wrong with carb loading before a game, right? Like there have been studies that prove that there's a tremendous improvement in performance if you do it properly. I guess that's the key, right?
But properly, if you subscribe to that, properly is how many hours before a game?
Properly actually goes days before the game, right? Because you're talking about carb deficiency in the body, and then proteins and fats, and then increasing that so that you can have that deficiency, so that you can increase the carbs and get the performance that you need out of that process.
Right.
Yeah. So do they do that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people do it properly. Anyway.
So that's the point I'm making. I mean, like if you look at the science behind it, you can find science to support anything.
Yep.
But I think people are still so entrenched in the tradition that they're not looking at the new science around it and then making an educated decision on what is best for their body.
Fair. Fair.